Honestly, I used to think VP Chung was a decent guy. He's a son-in-law who married up. The company founder is his father-in-law and the general manager is his wife. Chung always acted nice to everyone. Just as Quillian poured the last scoop of pig feed into the trough, someone suddenly shoved her hard from behind and she fell straight toward the well. With a splash, the freezing well water instantly went over her head. The old well was so deep you couldn't see the bottom. Quillian sank like a rock, choking on water, her lungs burning. She struggled to look up, and in the circle of light at the well's mouth, all she saw was her sister-in-law's cold, emotionless eyes. "You think a bought-up girl like you deserves to carry the Zhou family's heir?" Her sister-in-law's voice echoed down the well. Then a millstone-sized rock came flying down with the wind, and Quillian instinctively dodged. It scraped her shoulder and slammed into the water. The splash hit her hard, and her shoulder hurt so bad it felt like it was broken, sending a spasm through her whole body. Her sister-in-law was about to pick up another stone when Quillian used her last bit of strength to slap the water and shout, "Sister-in-law, I'm carrying a boy! He's a Zhou!" Her sister-in-law froze. In that moment of hesitation, Quillian's fingers dug into a protruding rock on the well wall. Blood instantly seeped from under her nails. Her sister-in-law stared at her for a long time, then finally dropped the stone and said coldly, "Fine, keep that life. Let's see if you can actually give birth to him." After saying that, she pushed the heavy stone cover over the well, leaving only a finger-wide gap. The well went dark in an instant like a sealed coffin. Quillian hung onto the wall, cold and in pain, her fingers slowly going numb. She had no idea how long passed, but then her foot found a loose brick. She carefully pried it open with her toes and managed to open a side hole just big enough for one person. She crawled in and curled up. The baby inside her stirred gently, and that tiny movement became her only reason to keep going. The next morning, the farmhand Gensheng's voice came from above. Quillian screamed, "Help!" with everything she had. Gensheng was terrified out of his wits and quickly found a rope to pull her out. When she woke up, she was lying on a pile of hay in the woodshed, with Gensheng crouching beside her, nervously wringing his hands. "It looks like your sister-in-law won't let you stay. I'll go report this to the authorities." Quillian shook her head, touching her still bulging belly. "No proof, they won't do anything. Besides, I'm close to giving birth. I can't leave." She paused, her eyes determined. "Gensheng, help me. Let me hide in this woodshed until the baby comes. Once I give birth, I'll leave right away. I won't drag you into this." Gensheng gritted his teeth and nodded. That hiding lasted 2 months. Every night, Gensheng secretly brought her food, and Quillian kept track of the days in the dark. She didn't dare light a lamp or make a sound. She even covered her mouth when she coughed. Only by feeling her belly grow bigger each day did she feel alive. Then one night, a searing pain ripped through her. Quillian knew the baby was coming. She bit down on a piece of wood, her whole body drenched in cold sweat. Gensheng heard the noise and rushed in. When he saw all the blood, his legs nearly gave out. "Don't call a midwife. Your sister-in-law will find out." Quillian grabbed his arm. "Boil me some hot water. I'll handle the rest myself." 2 hours later, a faint cry broke the silence of the woodshed. It was a boy. Quillian held her baby, tears streaming down her face. But when she looked down at his shoulder, she froze like she'd been struck by lightning, barely able to breathe. On the boy's right shoulder was a dark red birthmark, shaped like a crescent moon, or more like a deep bite mark. In that moment, Quillian remembered being pushed into the well. In desperation, she'd opened her mouth to scream, and in the chaos, she bit down hard on her sister-in-law's hand that was shoving her. She'd bitten so hard her mouth filled with blood, and now the mark had somehow imprinted on her own child. Gensheng stared in shock. "Quillian, what does this mean?" Quillian hugged her baby tighter, tears falling onto his face. "It doesn't mean anything. He's my child. I fought for him with everything I had." Before she finished speaking, the woodshed door crashed open and her sister-in-law stormed in with 2 servants. She'd been suspecting Gensheng was hiding Quillian and had been lying in wait. "Well, well, here you are." Her sister-in-law immediately spotted the baby in Quillian's arms, a twisted smile on her face. "Take that child. A lowlife like you doesn't get to take the Zhou family's heir." The servants rushed forward. Gensheng tried to block them but was kicked to the ground. Quillian held onto her baby with all her might, but they pried her hands away. The moment the baby was taken, he let out a heartbreaking cry. Her sister-in-law was about to gloat when her eyes fell on the birthmark on the baby's shoulder. She froze at first, then as if burned, suddenly threw the child to one of the servants and stumbled backward. "My boyfriend suggested we go Dutch on everything and split the chores. I was totally fine with it. Then payday came, and he said I owed him $3,000. He said, dead serious. I make $6,000 a month, you make 12. Together that's 18. Half each means 9,000, so you owe me 3,000. Xu Yang didn't even notice the look on my face. He just kept doing the math. "We've been together for 3 months and 7 days, he said. "Let's just call it 3 months, so you owe me 9,000. Him in disbelief. Then he kindly explained, "Mengqi, we're both in this for marriage. Living together now is just practice for married life. That means we're one unit, and our finances should be one." Seeing I didn't argue, he got even more confident. "To make our love perfect, we should have been one unit from the moment we became a couple. So the finances should count from the start." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Logically, what he said kinda made sense, like joint property. My money is his to spend. It felt like a fly stuck in my throat. Couldn't swallow it, couldn't spit it out. When I stayed quiet, he thought I agreed and went back to calculating. "We said we'd each put in 2,000 for shared expenses, so 9,000 plus this month's 2,000 means you owe me 11,000 total." Then he pulled out his phone and said, "Same as always, just we chatted over." Zhu Yang was set up by the company VP. I was pretty happy about it. VP Chung is usually cautious and never plays matchmaker. If he spoke up, he must think highly of me. And since he rarely did this, the guy had to be decent. Zhu Yang was good looking. Tall, handsome, just a bit thin. I thought to myself, no problem, I'll fatten him up. After asking more, I found out his looks were the only good thing. Everything else was just okay. He came from a single-parent family. VP Chung was his cousin. At our first dinner, he noticed my soup. I'm always busy, working, studying, climbing the ladder. I'd been single for 3 years after my last breakup, and I really wanted someone to care about me. I thought he was considerate, so I agreed. But after hearing his 50-50 logic, I realized I didn't know him at all. Lately, I've been swamped with a new project, working late, texting each other. We finally made time for a movie, but right when it started, my director called me back to the office. I felt bad for always being busy, but I never thought he'd act like he owned everything. I'm tough, and nobody takes advantage of me unless I let them. So I looked him straight in the eye and said, "We're living together in my apartment, my place that I saved up for. If you're staying, show. An apartment like mine rents for at least $3,000 a month. Half is $1,500. Times 4 months, you owe me $6,000. And my car, it's financed. I'll skip the down payment, but I bought a tricked-out Mercedes on loan to impress clients. If I didn't bring it up, he'd probably claim half of it, even though he can't drive, and ask me to pay him back. After I ran the numbers, he wouldn't get a cent from me. In fact, he'd owe me $2,000. His face went dark. Then I added, "The bed in my apartment is too small for 2 people. We need a bigger one." I showed him a photo. "I've had my eye on this solid wood bed. It's $38,000. Since we'll both be," his face got even darker. He didn't move, so I got in my car. He tried to get in, but I locked the doors. I rolled down the window. "Pay me back for the rent, car payments, and the bed first. No fair." I called my best friend for a nice dinner. Only good food can calm me down. I told her everything. She was shocked. "I thought the VP was doing you a favor. Turns out he hates you, setting you up with a weirdo like that." When I got home, I texted Zhu Yang that we weren't a good fit and ended it. I don't drag things out. The next day, VP Cheng called me into his office. I thought it was about a project and brought my PR. Steady and responsible. That's why I introduced Yang Yang to you. I hope you treat relationships with the same seriousness as work. He's just, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Choose him out in front of us. We kind of felt sorry for him. It must be rough dealing with that. But now I realize his mooching genes run in the family. He wanted his nephew to mooch too, and he tried to. My mother-in-law slapped me as soon as she found out. All because when I went to pay, I was told our card with 2 million yuan in it had insufficient funds. A quick check showed my husband had transferred over 1 million yuan to his ex-girlfriend, his so-called first love. Now there's barely over 100 yuan left in our account. But my mother-in-law still thought I'd stolen her son's money. My husband had a heart attack and was rushed to the hospital while I was in a work meeting. My phone kept buzzing non-stop on the conference table. It was an unknown number from the hospital. I answered, and a nurse said urgently, "Is this Mr. Zhou Yuhang's family? He's having a sudden heart attack and needs emergency care. Please get to the downtown hospital right away." My mind went completely blank. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the meeting room, flooring the gas pedal the whole way. What normally takes half an hour, I drove in 15 minutes. The red light above the operating room felt piercingly bright. I ran to the nurse's station, my voice shaking. "I'm Zhou Yuhang's wife, how is he?" The nurse handed me a stack of forms with a serious look. "Your husband is in critical condition. He needs immediate heart bypass surgery. This is the bill. Go pay first so we can schedule it right away." I took the papers. Staring at the long string of numbers, I took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll go right now." I clutched our bank card and ran to the payment window. This card held all our savings from years of hard work, 237 million yuan, more than enough. I slid the card through and entered my PIN, but the machine let out a cold alert. It said insufficient funds. I froze. How could that be? I looked at the teller. "Please try it again. There's no way." The teller looked annoyed but swiped it again. Same result. "Your card really doesn't have enough money." My heart sank. "Can you check the balance for me?" The teller glanced at me, typed a few things, and said, "Your balance is 153 yuan, 153.2 yuan. I stood there frozen like I'd been struck by lightning. How could over 2 million yuan be gone, leaving just over 100? My hands started shaking so badly I could barely hold the thin card. "Can I see the transaction history?" My voice was dry as sandpaper. The teller could tell something was wrong and pulled up our recent activity. The screen was filled with charges and transfers. The biggest one was from yesterday afternoon, a 1.3 million yuan transfer. The recipient's name felt like a burning needle straight to my eyes. Song Qingya, Zhou Yuhang's ex-girlfriend, the one he'd never stopped thinking about. The woman he claimed had moved abroad and gotten married 3 years ago. I stared at that name, my blood turning to ice. Yesterday afternoon, Zhou Yuhang said he was meeting an important client and wouldn't be home for dinner. Turns out that client was Song Qingya. He'd taken the money we'd saved for a school district house for our kid and sent her 1.3 million yuan. What about the rest of the money? I scrolled down to see tons of charges. A luxury bag for Song Qingya for 200,000 yuan, a year's rent on a fancy apartment for her for 300,000 yuan, and all kinds of other big purchases. Every single one proved the same thing. He'd blown all our money on another woman. Our entire life savings was gone, down to a pathetic 153.2 yuan. My vision started to blur. All those years of loving marriage and building a life together had just been one big joke. I, Xu Zhi, was the biggest fool of all. The teller's voice pulled me out of my numb shock. I snapped back to my senses and looked at the rest of the history. Don't bother checking further. My voice was eerily calm. Just then, a doctor rushed over from the ER. He saw me and said immediately, "Are you Zhou Yuhang's family?" His heart stopped twice. "We need to decide now. Do we use imported stents or domestic ones? Imported work better but cost more. Total surgery is around 700,000 yuan. Domestic is cheaper, about 300,000 but riskier." He kept talking, but I couldn't hear a word. 700,000, 300,000, but I only had 153.2 yuan. I stared at the doctor's worried face, at the still flashing red light above the operating room, like it was mocking how stupid and naive I was. I lifted my head calmly, looked him in the eye, and said clearly, "We're stopping treatment." The doctor froze. "What did you say?" He thought he'd misheard. I repeated it, quiet but firm. "I said we're stopping treatment. We have no money." The doctor looked at me like I was crazy. "Ma'am, calm down. This isn't a joke. That's your husband in there. You can figure out the money later. A life is on the line." I stared at him and almost laughed. "Figure it out? How? Borrow from my parents? They're just retired workers. Their life savings is only a few 100,000, and they need it to retire." Borrow from? Zhu Yuhang took our life savings to buy cars, houses, and bags for his mistress. Now he's in the ER. Why should I sell everything and drown in debt to save a cheater? I smiled faintly and said calmly. My calmness and resolve left the doctor speechless. He opened his mouth, then just shook his head and walked away, full of pity and confusion. I leaned against the cold wall, feeling completely drained. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Wang Yulan. I answered, and before I could say a word, her shrill voice cut through. "Xu Zhi, where the hell are you? Yu Hang's in the hospital and you're not here? If anything happens to my son, you're dead meat." Listening to her familiar, harsh scolding, I felt nothing. I used to apologize and explain right away, but now I was just tired. "I'm at the hospital," I said flatly. Wang Yulan hesitated, surprised by my tone. "At the hospital? Why can't I see you? Mealing and I are almost there. Stay right there." She hung up. I put my phone away and stared blankly at the operating room. Moments later, fast footsteps and sobbing came from the hallway. "My baby boy! My Yuhang!" Wang Yulan and Zhou Yuhang's sister Zhou Meiling rushed over. They didn't even glance at me, just ran straight to the operating room doors. Wang Yulan banged on the door and wailed loudly. Zhou Meiling grabbed a passing nurse. "How's my brother? What's wrong with this hospital? Why is he still in surgery?" The nurse was dizzy from being shaken and quickly tried to speak. Her stepmom stuffed the last half of a wheat cake into her hand. Chewing on tree bark, she said, "Run fast." "Don't look back." She squeezed the cake and ran. Behind her, she heard her stepmom coughing. She couldn't understand why her stepmom, who never even gave her extra bran, would let her go in the middle of a war. She hadn't run even half a mile when she heard horses coming. She hid in a pile of firewood. She watched as soldiers dragged her stepmom by the hair, yelling, "Where'd that girl go?" Her stepmom held her head high and said, "I don't know." She ran off with some stray dogs. A soldier kicked her, then cursed and left. When she came out, her stepmom had blood running from her mouth, but she pulled a cloth pouch from her shirt and said, "There's a pair of scissors in here. Use it to protect yourself from bad guys." Crying, she asked, "Why are you being so nice to me?" Her stepmom looked away. "Quit talking. Head south and find your distant uncle." After walking all day, she was starving and thirsty and passed an abandoned village. Suddenly, 2 starving refugees ran out, trying to snatch the only half-wheat cake in her arms. She shrank back in fear, gripping the scissors tight, but was too shaky to use them. Just as the refugees were about to pounce, an old woman with a cane rushed out from the grass. She swung a stick and chased the refugees away. The old woman looked at her and said she'd been sent by her stepmom to watch over her. She told her not to go to her uncle's, but to hide in a broken cave on the mountain. Doubtful, she followed the old woman. It was the first time anyone had helped her, and she felt both scared and warm inside. But in the middle of the night, she heard the old woman whispering outside the cave, seemingly tipping someone off, saying the girl was inside. She'd never get away. Her heart dropped. She quietly grabbed the scissors and crawled out a small hole at the back of the cave. She ran deep into the mountains, not trusting anyone anymore. After running all night, her legs gave out. She leaned against a tree to catch her breath. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Thinking it was the pursuers, she closed her eyes and swung the scissors. Someone grabbed her wrist. When she opened her eyes, it was her stepmom, with new cuts all over her face and torn clothes. Scared, she stepped back and accused her of teaming up with the old woman to catch her. Her stepmom said nothing, just pressed a hard cornbread bun into her hand. "Go east. Don't stop. People are after you for reward money. I'll lead them away." With that, her stepmom ran the opposite way. She made a lot of noise on purpose, drawing the distant footsteps after her. She stood there, the hard bun digging into her palm, her mind in total chaos. She couldn't tell if her stepmom was good or bad. She followed her stepmom's words and headed east. After 2 days, she collapsed from hunger and was saved by a peddler. The peddler said, "Your stepmom sent me with a message. Don't go to your uncle's. Wait for her at the mountain temple. She has something important for you." She was hesitant, but remembering her stepmom had led pursuers away twice, she gritted her teeth and went to the temple. As soon as she reached the gate, 2 soldiers grabbed her, the same ones who'd beaten her stepmom. The soldiers laughed. Your stepmom sold you out, said you're a rich family's lost daughter, worth 20 taels of silver. We've been waiting for you. Her heart sank. Tears poured down her face as she squeezed the scissors, hating herself for trusting that cruel woman. Just as the soldiers were about to tie her up, the temple door slammed open. Her stepmom charged in with a rusty hatchet, slashing one soldier's arm. Red-eyed, she yelled, "Nobody touches my daughter!" Furious, the soldiers swung blades at her. Her stepmom shielded her tightly and took a heavy blow to the back, falling to the ground. Gritting through the pain, she pointed at the stone wall behind the statue. "Dig it open. Your real mom left something inside. Hurry!" Crying, she dug with her bare hands and soon uncovered a wooden box. Inside was a silver ingot, a crumpled letter, and half a jade pendant. She opened the letter, her hands shaking violently. It said her stepmom was actually her real mom's own sister. Years ago, her real mom was framed by villains. Fearing for her daughter's life, she asked her sister to act as a cruel stepmom and stay by her side. She treated her harshly on purpose. It was to keep anyone from noticing she was a rich family's only child and putting her in danger. Not feeding or clothing her well was to make her look unimportant. Amid the chaos of war, the men who framed her family were still on her trail. I have an older sister and a younger brother. My parents sleep in the master bedroom, my sister and brother in the second bedroom, and I've been living on the balcony for 18 years. Then my parents finally decided to trade our small 3-bedroom for a big 4-bedroom house. I cried so many happy tears. After the busy housewarming, we started picking rooms. The biggest master bedroom obviously went to my parents. My sister chose the bedroom right next door. My brother complained she only cared about respecting our parents, not the younger kid, and happily moved into the north bedroom. I grabbed my few belongings, so excited, and headed for the last room, until my brother stopped me. "Second sis, you're going the wrong way. Your room's over there." I followed his gaze and saw that familiar single wooden bed on the balcony. Then I realized it wasn't that the house wasn't big enough. It was that I just didn't matter to them. I froze in place while my parents, sister, and brother unpacked and gathered in that last room. My brother. "The game room I've always wanted. It's finally mine." He spun around the room, thrilled. My sister. "At least I have somewhere to put all my makeup, even if it's just one cabinet." She seemed pretty happy with her spot. Mom tugged Dad's arm gently. "Chin, try out your office chair. I spent a whole month's salary on this ergonomic one." After Mom begged him a few times, Dad sat down. His eyes got wet. "I don't have to work at the dinner table anymore. Thank you, honey." My sister and brother turned around together. "Thanks, Mom. We love you so much." I just stood there, staring at the 4 of them, so happy together. Tears kept falling, soaking the shiny white floor. I've lived on the balcony ever since my parents brought me home from my aunt's when I was 8. That was 10 years. I dreamed every night of moving to a 4-bedroom house. Now we did, but there's still no room for me. An hour later, they finally came out after having their fun and noticed me standing there with red, puffy eyes from crying. My clueless brother walked over and poked my arm. "What's wrong, second sis? You're not happy about the new house?" That made my sister laugh at first, but she stopped quick when she saw my face. She put on a nice act and stepped over. "Little sister, if you really hate the balcony that much, I'll switch rooms with you." Before I could even say anything, my parents both yelled, "No way! You're taking the college entrance exam soon. You need your rest." A bitter feeling hit me. So they did know it was hard to sleep on the balcony. I whispered quietly, "But I'm taking the college entrance exam too." I thought that might make them feel a little guilty, but they just looked the same. "You've lived there 10 years. You're used to it. You're not like your sister." Dad gave me a stern, scolding look. "She's a light sleeper, you know that." Mom jumped in too. "You always have to compare everything. So selfish and immature." The tears I just held back started pouring again. Immature? How much more mature do I have to be? There are 3 kids in this family, and I'm not the oldest. But I'm the only one who ever does housework. Even when I studied till midnight for high school entrance exams, I still had to wash the dishes, do the laundry, and mop the floor. After shutting down my sister's offer, everyone looked at my brother. He immediately shouted, "If you make me sleep on the balcony, I'll make sure none of you sleep at night." Mom patted his head, helpless but loving. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'd never make you sleep on the balcony." My brother. "Good. Then I won't snitch to Grandma and Grandpa." He said it proudly. I still refused to move to the balcony. Things got tense. I kept wanting to just leave, but I forced myself not to. 8 years living with my aunt, feeling like a stranger. I wanted a real home more than anything. Even if my family didn't love me like I hoped, it was still my home. Not someone else's house where I had to beg for a place to stay. I swallowed my hurt and frustration, trying to talk to them one more time, carefully.